Freunde und ist jemand zum ersten Mal hier? Somebody here for the first time? Verstehst du Englisch?
Ja, beides.
Verstehen alle Englisch? You're here for the first time? Welcome. So we are always very happy if newcomers come to the Sunday program. And why? Because we try to introduce our activities, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to newcomers. And now we're going to have a lecture. And we're still waiting for the speaker. We are very fortunate today. We have His Grace Nrsimha Kavaca Prabhu, who is a senior devotee in our movement. He's living in Australia. And Hare Krishna. He's serving as the minister of deity worship in the worldwide organization of ISKCON, meaning he's responsible for making sure that the right type of worship on the altar, in terms of standard and how everything is conducted, is being. You can hear me, right? So that's his responsibility, and he's just currently traveling in Europe to different temples, and he's of course also seeing how's the worship going in the different temples. But he's also giving classes. He's giving classes on deity worship. Today he will give a class on the topic attraction for the all-attractive. Who's the all-attractive?
Krishna.
You know everything. So yeah, we are waiting for Nrsimha Kavaca Prabhu. Maybe for those of you who are here for the first time, at 6 we have a lecture now for 1 hour. At 5 o'clock we'll be serving a vegetarian feast outside. And then at 6:50 the program continues in the temple room, and you have the chance to learn how to chant on beats. The meditation we were just doing, chanting this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So one way to do it is in this way, in a musical way, in a collective way, but this can also be done individually, in one's own practice, and this is usually done on prayer beats. And somebody will show and teach how this can be done anywhere and everywhere, even at home. So you might not be able to come to the temple every day. So if you learn how to meditate on beats, you can do that at home or at work. If you have a busy day, you need a break, you can chant one round somewhere, like that. And then at 7 o'clock we will have our Gora Arati, the ceremony. And at 8 o'clock, I can maybe already announce, we have His Grace Madhava Prabhu again. He will be leading Kirtan till 9:30. So now we would like to welcome His Grace Nrsimha Kavaca Prabhu, and we usually do that by loudly chanting Hari Bol.
Who did you say she's doing Kirtan tonight?
Madhava Prabhu.
I was wondering if his was doing it right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, been here for a few weeks.
That's good to see again.
He comes to Australia sometime.
It's all over the place. Yeah, that's all I know. Gita? Hare Krishna. It's nice to see you all. I come from a country called Australia, which is kind of a long way from here. And our accent's probably quite different from your accent. So I'll try to be conscious of speaking a bit slowly,
Yes.
so you can understand what I'm saying.
We are Swiss, we are slow.
But in Australia, we tend to talk quickly and we run all our words together, so it all sounds like one big long sentence. Yeah? So I'll try to avoid that. Yeah. Is anyone here for the first time?
Yes.
Nice, thank you for coming. Thank you. Hope you gain something by coming here. This song will be called the Tricep of Worship Called Jai Go Premanandi, all voices of warriors, all voices of warriors, all voices of warriors, All glories, Sri Guru, Sri Guru, all glories, Sri Prabhupada.
Jai.
Fanciest girl I've worn for a while.
If you like to come a little closer.
Yes, I'm vegetarian, I don't eat people. So, I get the gala not because I'm special, but because I need mercy. This is the mercy of Krishna. So, I feel very fortunate. And also, I feel fortunate to be here in Zurich. I haven't been here for, well, I was here 2 years ago for about 4 hours. We sort of passed through all the way down to Italy. But prior to that, I think it was 2016 when I was here, so I'm happy to be here again. So I just want to read something from this book here, which is called Bhagavad Gita. So just for the benefit of those who are new, or here for the first time, this book is a dialogue that took place approximately 5,000 years ago or near a place called Kurukshetra in India. There's a field there, a big field where there's a battle. And it was a fratricidal war, which was between two branches of the family. One was called the Kauravas, one was called the Pandavas. And they were fighting over the kingdom. And on one side there was Arjuna and his 4 brothers, the Pandavas, and on the other side was Duryodhana and his 99 brothers, they were called the Kauravas. And Yudhisthira, who was Arjuna's older brother, he was the rightful heir to the throne, but because of kind of, not intrigue, well, I guess it was intrigue, but basically because of political intrigue, what had happened was when they were young, they were being looked after by relatives, grandfather, etc. So his uncle looked after the kingdom, but he became attached to being in charge of the kingdom. So he didn't want to let go because he was enjoying the life of being the emperor, sitting on the throne and having people bow down, etc. But he wasn't qualified to be the king because he was blind from birth. So when the Pandavas came of age, the right thing to do would have been to give them the throne. But because Dhritarashtra was attached, he didn't. He wanted his sons to take over the throne. And they'd also become attached to the power. And so a war came about. They tried to negotiate, but Krishna was trying to negotiate, but they wouldn't negotiate. And actually, Duryodhana was so mean-spirited. Krishna went to him and said, "Look, just give them 5 villages. They're warriors. They have to rule something. That's just the nature of a warrior. They want to rule." And Duryodhana's mean-spirited answer was, "I will not even give them enough land into which they can drive the point of a pin." So pretty mean guy, you know. He wouldn't give them anything because he really disliked the Pandavas, especially Bhima. He really had some serious animosity towards Bhima. Anyway, so what resulted was a war. And on the one side of the war you had the Kauravas and all their friends and different personalities. On the other side you had the Pandavas. Now I can't remember the exact numbers, but on the Pandavas side I think there was 5 divisions, and on the Kauravas side there was 11, I think, from memory. We might have that wrong, but I think there was 11. So the Kauravas had vastly more warriors than the Pandavas, basically about twice as many. Yet, the Pandavas had a secret weapon on their side. Yeah? They had God. Krishna was Arjuna's chariot driver. And he said, "But I'm not going to fight." But Arjuna didn't mind, because he knew if Krishna was on his side, victory would be there. Because wherever there's Krishna or God, there's always victory. So what happens is a really interesting dialogue, this, and if you follow the way it unfolds is at the beginning of the war, what would happen is the generals would go down and survey the opposite party to see who they had to contend with. So Arjuna asked Krishna to take his chariot in front of the warriors so he could see who was there to fight and who was supporting Duryodhana. So Krishna very cleverly took his chariot right in front of the persons on the other side who Arjuna was most attached to, his grandfather and his guru. You know? So if you understand much about the culture of guru in Vedic culture, you know, for a disciple to fight with a guru is practically, you know, it doesn't happen. You know? So for him to have to face his grandfather, and you know, his grandfather was practically, apart from his brothers, was the most dear person to him in the world, because his grandfather had arranged for his education, for everything basically, taking care of him since he was about, you know, since he was a teenager. And then also, his name was Bhishma, and his guru's name was Dronacharya. And he was confronted with this, and what happened, because Krishna, you know, so I do a bit of teaching, and one of the things we do in teaching is called experiential learning. You create an environment where someone experiences something, and then you analyze the way you respond to that, and look at how we can improve on the way we respond to things. So this is exactly what Krishna was doing. He was creating this situation where he knew Arjuna was going to have an emotional reaction to what he was confronted with. You know, he could have taken him anywhere on the battlefield to oversee the warriors, but he took him right in. It says, pra mukata, look at his face. So, and pra is like a word that amplifies the word that follows, a prefix that amplifies what follows. So it wasn't, you know, the expression in your face. Yeah? He was like literally in the face of Dronacharya and Bhishma. And so knowing that this would create an emotional response from Arjuna, and essentially what Arjuna did, he just cast aside his bow and he said, Govinda, I shall not fight. It was just, you know, it was too much for him. He was overwhelmed by that. And that in itself is a very significant thing for Arjuna to say that, because he'd taken a vow that he would never set aside his bow, and that anyone who suggested he set aside his bow, he killed them. You know, because he was a warrior, and warriors made vows like that. They were very sort of strong, fiery people. And, you know, so this dialogue is what results, what comes about as a result of this situation where Arjuna is bewildered. He just doesn't know what to do, and so he's looking for guidance from Krishna. And we see, you know, at the end of the first chapter, he starts like, you know, speaking philosophy to Krishna and morality and things like that. You know, that while it's said, you know, I've heard from authorities that, you know, if one kills the superiors, then irreligion will come, and from irreligion comes unwanted progeny. And then right at the beginning of the second chapter, the first time when Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, he calls Arjuna a fool. He says, you know, while speaking learned words, you're mourning for that which is not worthy of grief, because a wise man laments neither for the living nor the dead. So straight up, he's just telling Arjuna where he's at. He's saying, you're speaking big words, but you don't know what you're talking about. Because he's saying that the wise man doesn't lament for the living or dead, because it's just an external body. It's just like, you know, you're driving down the road and you're in a car crash. Okay, it can be traumatic, but it is only a car. You know, it's not like it's your life's going to change because the car's broken. It's not like it's the end of your life or something. Or, you know, it's just a machine, after all. Or it's like, you know, if I break my fingernail, you know, should I lament over it? Should I start crying? Some people do, because they're so attached to the way their fingernails look. But it's just, you know, or like when I shave my head and I look down in the sink and I see all the hair, I just burst into tears because, you know, I feel like I've lost some part of my identity. I remember when I was growing up as a child, my father was a military man and he was very strict, you know, short back and sides. That's what we had to have every day. And my older brother had managed to grow his hair down to shoulder length, and my dad one day just marched him down to the barber's and he cut off all his hair. My brother just burst into tears. You know, just became so attached to this external manifestation, which is only temporary. Hair comes and goes. You know, this is only a temporary thing. And the same with the body. Arjuna's lamenting, you know, because Krishna says a wise man doesn't lament for the living and the dead. So Arjuna is lamenting over this external situation, this temporary situation, because even though we may have these attractive material bodies, how long do they last? Like, how long do you think you live for? 70, 60, 80, 90, maybe 100? Maybe? Does anyone want to live for 100 years? It's pretty, I mean, I'm 66, so it's already difficult. You know? Wait till you get to 100, my gosh. I mean, you'll see me when I get up from this thing, it's like, you know, I have to kind of crawl out of it, you know. I remember my grandmother, because Australia used to be part of the Commonwealth countries, you know, the British countries and that. And so what would happen is when someone hit 100, the Queen would send you a letter and congratulate you on getting to 100. So I remember I saw her when she was 96, and I said, Gran, guess what? You're almost 100, you're going to get a letter from the Queen. She says, I don't want it, I've had enough. So she was getting to the point in her body that she just really had enough of it, you know. And, you know, so the point is that I'm trying to make here is that, you know, we become so attached to these temporary material things. They come, they go, you know. It's just like, you look at everything in this material world, like everything that has life, it comes into existence, yeah? It grows, it remains for some time, it produces some byproducts, then it dwindles and it vanishes. Everything goes through this cycle. There's nothing in existence that you can think of that does not go through this cycle. Everything in this creation will at some point dwindle and vanish, including your body. And this is a really important thing. So, you know, if this is all temporary, this whole existence we're experiencing is temporary, then what's the point? You know, if it's temporary, why bother doing anything? Why not just, you know, stay in bed all day and wait till you die? You know, if it's temporary after all. No, what's the purpose of existence? This is what we need to understand. And there's a really interesting conversation that takes place about 500 years ago between Lord Chaitanya and one of his prominent disciples, Sanatana Goswami. And you know, because Sanatana Goswami was quite a scholar, actually one of the most prominent scholars of that age. And he was regularly glorified as being a pundit. Pundit's a Sanskrit word, or a word they use in India, which means someone who's very knowledgeable in the scriptures. And he said, but you know, people are glorifying me as being very learned, but I don't even know who I am. Because I think I'm this body which is suffering the threefold miseries. Threefold miseries means, you know, miseries caused by others, misery caused by nature, and things like that, you know. There's adi-baudic, adi-atmic, and adi-daivic, you know, caused by the higher living entities. He says, you know, I don't even know who I am, and I don't know why I'm suffering. And see, these are the real key questions we need to ask ourselves, is why am I here in this material world? What's it for? Is it just to, you know, there's an expression in English, I guess it's an American expression, whoever has the most toys when they die, they win. Is that what it's all about? Is just to collect the most things that you can, have the most possessions, the best car, the best house? But then you die, what's the use of it? How does it help you? You know, I had an auntie years ago, Auntie Agnes, she was a character. And she was wealthy. And she used to say to us, if I can't take it with me, I'm not going to go. But guess what? Auntie Agnes went, and her wealth stayed here. You know, you can't take it with you. So then it's really important for us, especially, you know, for an intelligent person, to understand. There's a statement in the start of the Vedanta Sutra that says Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means Atato means therefore. So let's talk about now. You've got this human. Your previous talk about having a human form of life. Therefore, Brahma Jigyasa. Understand. Gya or means knowledge or to know. So Jigyasa means to understand what is the purpose of life, what is Brahman. So Brahman has different meanings. It has three primary meanings. One is Parabrahman, which means the supreme. One is Brahman, meaning the jiva. One is Brahman, meaning the material nature. So there's three different meanings. So the idea is, now we have this human form of life, we should understand who I am, who is God, what is this all around me, and what is the relationship between these things. Essentially, why am I here? What am I meant to be doing with this life? And this is what this path of Krishna consciousness is all about. Of course, we like you all coming here, there's no doubt of that. But we don't invite you here to ask you for money. We don't invite you here to take something from you. We invite you here to give you this knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Because in this world, everyone's struggling for existence, everyone's struggling to enjoy. And especially now, I'm sure you're all feeling the same, challenges here that we feel in Australia. The cost of living is just going up and up. Like, before I left, the day before I left actually, I live on a farm, a Hare Krishna farm in Australia. It's a really nice place. If you ever come to Australia, please come. It's just so beautiful. Especially in the summer and the spring. It might be a bit hot for you, but it's really nice. Anyhow, so I met with the treasurer, or I just bumped into her and I said, I hear there's an increase in the electricity bill. And she said, yes, it's going from 33 cents a unit to 44 cents a unit. 25%, 33% increase. And it's not like, okay, fine, that's just what's happening, but everyone's dealing with that, The cost of petrol's going up, the cost of plane tickets is going up, food has gone up by 40% since the pandemic. It's just like everything's going up. So everyone's struggling, everyone's feeling the pinch, but at the same time, everyone's trying to enjoy. And they're not really finding satisfaction. And I think we're all in the same boat. We're not, okay, we want this, we want that, but we're not really getting what we want out of life. And this is because, the reason of this is because we don't really know what life is for. We don't really know who we are. Yeah? But the point of this Krishna conscious philosophy is to help you to understand who you are. And this is the point that Sanatana Goswami, he asks of Lord Chaitanya, who am I? This Kayami. This is the important question we need to ask, is who am I? And when one has such questions, the idea is you approach someone who knows. This is described, we see that in the second chapter, in the 7th verse, Arjuna says to Krishna, okay, I accept what you're saying. I don't understand. Therefore, Shishasteham Saribam Prapanam, I'll become your disciple. Please instruct me. Yeah? And then we see in the second chapter, later in the second chapter, Krishna starts to explain to him about the nature of the self. The Jayate Miyate Vakadachin Mayam Bupa Bhavatava Nabuyajo Nityo Shashvatam Yamparono, the Hanyate Hanyamaya Shirire. That for the soul, meaning the living entity inside this body, because this body is not us. It's just a temporary covering of the soul. And if you're a little bit introspective, you'll see that this body is constantly changing. I'm not changing, I'm still the same. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I didn't like wireless. When I was 20 years old, I didn't like wireless. I'm 66 years old now, and I still don't like wireless. It hasn't changed. And this, the same things I like, I still like them. I like hot weather, not too wet, not too dry, in between. Some people, they love dry weather. I have these particular types of senses associated with this body, which attract these things, but also I have my intrinsic disposition, which is the nature of the self. And that doesn't change. The body, that changes. And you'll see that, like here we have a young boy, must be 6 or 7 years old, and then we have a whole bunch of people here, probably ranging from 30 to 50 to 60, 70, all different ages. And you'll see, if you look at them, because Krishna says, what is it? I forgot the verse, but it says, as the embodied soul continues to change, te hinas munyata de he komara the albanum jara, tatate hatara paptis, diras tataranamiti. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this life, it's continuous, from boyhood to youth to old age to death. From boyhood to youth to old age, the soul simply passes into another body at death. And he says, diras tata, so dira means one who's sober, one who's not agitated by all this goings on in this material world. Diras tata namuyati is not bewildered. Muya means to be bewildered. So a sober person is not bewildered by this change, but understands it for what it is. So, because we're all going through these changes. We get born, we grow, we go through the youth thing, we experience the world, and we enjoy it, we do this and we do that, and then we start to get older, and the body goes into decline. And we all experience it differently, but the body goes into decline, and at some point, that body will stop to function. But I don't stop to function, I go on. That's the thing, because Krishna is making this point in the Gita, the soul is eternal. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time, has not come into being, does not come into being, will not come into being, is unborn, eternal, and existing primeval, not slain when the body is slain. The second chapter of the Gita has many, many key instructions for us to understand in order to really understand who we are in this material world, what's my position. It really sort of focuses on explaining to us that I'm not this material body. Then, okay, so once we have a somewhat of an understanding of that, then what's next? And from studying the scriptures, we can, especially a book like Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that our purpose is like, once we understand ourselves, our purpose is then to understand who's the Supreme. Where did I come from? And then what is my duty? Because everyone has a responsibility. I was talking about this yesterday, the human form of life is the only platform where there's responsibility. You look at any other species, like, there's a zoo up on the hill up here, and there's elephants and crocodiles and all sorts of stuff there, I'm sure. What's the responsibility of a crocodile? Eat, sleep, mate, defend. That's it. No responsibility. If it bites off the zookeeper's leg, does it get any reaction? Does it go to jail? No. No responsibility for its actions, because it's just living out the result of its karma. It's got that body due to its karma. But when you have a human form of life, when you have a human body, then whatever you do in this life has a reaction, good or bad, depending on what you do. And this is all calculated. So, in the human form of life, our responsibility is to, first off, to understand what is my duty. And naturally, if you're intelligent, you want to take up a duty that's not going to implicate you in any further activities in this material world, to force you to take another material body and go through the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, you go through the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th chapter, 8th chapter, he talks about how to, he talks about the nature of the Supreme, how to serve the Supreme, and he also, in the beginning of the 8th chapter, he talks about a bit about the process of reincarnation and how that works. How, when you achieve a particular consciousness at the end of this life, then that consciousness you achieve in your next life without fail. So sometimes you see, like, people might have pets, for instance, and you have a close look, and it's like quite remarkable. They look quite similar. I've seen this sometimes, that the people that have a pet, they look similar to their pet. There's a good chance they're going to wind up in a similar body in their next life, because they've taken on that kind of consciousness. So this is why we need to be very, very careful about, if we're concerned about our destination, this is really what it gets down to. You have to figure out, are you concerned about where you go in the next life? If you are concerned, then start to do activities now which determine where you'll be in the future. Just like, what's the date now? It's the 1st of September, on the 14th of, was it the 14th or the 15th? Yeah, somewhere around the 15th of August, I caught a flight from Sydney to Delhi, then from Delhi to Rome, and then came up here. But I didn't just go to the airport and get on the plane. I made sure I had my passport, I made sure I had the tickets, I made sure my bags were packed. I prepared myself for the journey. So, because I was expecting it was going to be a fair bit colder here, so I bought warm clothes, so thinking, we drove across the Alps, and last time I drove across the Alps it was like about 6 or 7 degrees. And yesterday it was 25 degrees, so a bit different. But you prepare yourself for your journey so that you have a good experience. Yeah? You don't just go somewhere blindly and think, oh, I'll just leave it up to whatever happens, stay wherever I can, whatever. No, you prepare yourself. And so in the same way, this transmigration, as I was saying, the body and soul continuously passes this from boyhood to youth to old age, you pass into another body at death. So if you want to have a good experience next time around, then prepare yourself this time around for that next birth, because it will happen. And then that's one aspect of it, and then also we see that Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that excuse me, is that we need to understand our relationship with the Supreme. Who is God? And what is my duty? What is my relationship with Him? And then we see, I think, both in the 11th chapter and the 18th chapter, Krishna explains to Arjuna that I can be understood as I am standing before you by this process of devotional service. And so this is the aspiration of devotees of God, is to try to understand Krishna and try to understand how to serve Him. And I just want to read a verse for you with a couple of glasses. There's another sign of the deteriorating body. I never used to need to wear these things. You couldn't put like a sign over there, just a regular sign I could read from here. Now it's all just blurry. Without these things. And that's just the dwindling process. So Krishna explains here, this is towards the end of the 18th chapter, he says, Manmana mamamat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishi sattante pratijane priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So this is Krishna, he's explaining to Arjuna, because he's told him what the supreme destination is. He said, I am the supreme destination. In the next verse he also says, to abandon all varieties of religion. Any concept you have of religion, just give it up and follow what I'm explaining to you. And then you'll achieve me. Ma Suchaha says, don't fear, you'll achieve me if you just give up all these ideas and surrender to me. And this is the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita, really, is Arjuna has his preconceived notions of dharma, of religion. And Krishna is saying to him that you're wrong. You don't understand, because your notion of religion is based on your body. It's based on something which is not you. It's just like, okay, you wear a green shirt, right? And you base your concept of life on the green shirt you're wearing. What's that? It's crazy, because you're not the shirt. The way you interact with everyone because you're wearing a green shirt, okay, well, you're not wearing a green shirt, so I'm not going to interact with you. It's just craziness. So in the same way, to base our concept of everything we do in the world on the body, it's just an incorrect calculation. It's just like in mathematics. We all did mathematics. I don't know if you do it here, but in Australia, when we was learning maths, in the back of our maths book, we put a multiplication table. 1 to 12 across the top, 1 to 12 down the side, and then you filled in all the squares of what it equals, 1 by 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, all that sort of stuff. And that's what we're based on. And if you made a mistake in that multiplication table, you got down to 3 by 3, you put 10, and then every time you're checking your formulas and you go to your multiplication table and you see 10, and you write that into the equation, you're going to be wrong. Yeah? And so, if your foundation of understanding or foundation of knowledge has some error in it, then everything you calculate from there is going to be mistaken. And the very essential point that we have wrong is to think that this external covering is me. Just like, if I thought I was the t-shirt, you'd probably all think I was a bit wacky. Yeah? But we just go a little bit deeper. That's what we're doing. We're all thinking we're this body. And with that misconception, we make so many miscalculations in this life that, like, my way of enjoying in this world is through this body. But it doesn't actually work that good because the body's temporary. And maybe for some time, you know, you'll get, but the body really is only the instrument. It's not, the body doesn't actually enjoy it. You know, if you're experiencing some pain in the body, you know, it's localized to whatever's experiencing pain, but it itself, the body, is not really suffering and enjoying. You're just perceiving that through the consciousness. If you take the consciousness, just like, you know, when you go and have an operation, you know, has anyone here had an operation on their body? Yeah, a few. Okay, so I had an operation a few years, 2019, and I had a tumour, and they cut me up in 7 places and stuck all these tubes into me. And I didn't feel it, nothing, because I was unconscious. But if they hadn't done that to me when I was conscious, it probably would have been quite a traumatic experience, I would think, you know, especially seeing them do all this stuff, you know. So you can see how the body's only an instrument. As long as you're conscious of the body, then you feel what's happening to the body, but it's just an instrument. You need to understand that. The body is just an instrument, and we are not that instrument. We are the spirit soul inside of this body. Yeah? Not that we're the instrument. So anyhow, Krishna is explaining here to Arjuna that the way to find peace, the way to find happiness in this world, is to always to worship him, to offer homage to him, to serve him. You know, he says, you know, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage to me. Thus you'll come to me without fail. And why the Krishna's realm is attractive is because, okay, in this material world, as I've been describing, it's a place it's temporary. You go through all these different changes here in this place. You know, there's so many miseries we're confronted with, etc. Whereas in the spiritual realm, it's devoid of any of these inebrities or inebrieties that we experience here in this material world. Yeah? They don't happen there. And so this is one reason it's very attractive. Another reason it's very attractive is because of the abode of Krishna. And we were talking about this morning. We're reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 24, and it was explaining one verse from the 7th chapter of the 1st canto, called the Atmarama verse, and Lord Chaitanya was explaining this quality of guna, or the word guna, which means quality, and talking about Krishna's different qualities. And Krishna is just so attractive. He's just so attractive. And this is actually what I was meant to be talking about, was how attractive Krishna is. And, you know, the process of becoming attracted to the all-attractive. Because right now in this material world, we're attracted to so many different things. And the reason we're attracted to these different things is because we think they're more attractive than the most attractive thing. Yeah? You know, I mean, whatever it is you're attracted to, I don't know. It might be other people, it might be people from, you know, from other genders. It might be fast cars, or, you know, technology, whatever. But we're attracted to these things, more so than we are attracted to God. And the reason we are attracted to these things is because our senses are conditioned or covered by different coverings. Just like I was thinking about this when I was upstairs, and like, you know, how to express, you know, adequately this idea of the senses being covered. I used to have this pair of driving glasses. Someone gave them to me a long time ago, and they were like bright yellow. So when you wore these bright yellow glasses, everything looked bright yellow. Yeah? And there was a song when I was a kid by this pop star called Rose-Colored Glasses. So, you know, when you wear rose-colored glasses, everything looks very rosy. Yeah? You think, oh, it's all very nice. You know, and it's just like a filter. You put a filter over a light. What colour is the light? The sunlight coming through the light. It's a whitish colour, yeah? Whitish yellow colour. But if you put a filter over it, a different colour comes through. But it doesn't change the light. It's just the result of the filter. So the body is like a filter. It covers the real self. And depending on what type of body you might have a human body, so you act like a human being. But what if you have a dog body? You're going to come here and listen to Bhagavad Gita classes? No, because you have a different filter over the soul. So depending on the type of filter you have, you will act in a different type of way. So the idea is that through practicing a spiritual process such as Krishna consciousness, we can gradually remove the effects of this filter, which cause us to be attracted. Just like you see, like we talk about filters, we talk about different types of bodies. When you see a male dog, for instance, you probably don't see that many around here, but you know, living out in the countryside, you do see a few dogs. And you just see the behaviour of a male dog, right, and the things they're attracted to. They're pretty kind of unpalatable. You know, they run around sniffing each other's backsides and, you know, you think, oh, I'm getting too much of it because it's pretty gross. But, you know, they have this attraction. Why? Why do they have this attraction? Because they think they're a dog. And this is what dogs do. And whatever body we take on, because of the effect of that body, because of the filter that body puts over us, we start to think in that way. And the interesting thing is, it's described in the scriptures, how we find a particular type of satisfaction in that species, and we're never averse to being in that species. Just like now we're in a human body, here we are in Zurich, nice country, you know, nice lifestyle, you know, good standard of living, etc. like that. And most likely none of you would want to take birth as a pig. Yeah? Anyone here would like to be a pig? Probably not. Or a dog? A worm? No, we find that very unpalatable because I've got a good lifestyle, I don't need that. But if you ask a pig, do you want to be a human being? Why would I want to do that? Look at my lifestyle, I have such a perfect life. Because they're satisfied. And this is the effect of the covering. The covering covers this. It's just like if you can imagine a prison, like going to a prison no one wants to leave because it's such a nice place to be. Yeah? Anyone ever been in prison here? Yeah? I've been in jail. It wasn't a nice place. I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to get out as quick as I could. But it's just not a nice place. But the material world is created in such a way, it is a jail, a prison, whatever you want to call it. Durga means like fort. It's a jail, but it's so designed that there's no prison guards, there's no barbed wire fences, no spotlights, no machine guns, nothing like that, because nobody wants to leave. And we're all trapped here, and we don't want to leave, because we think this is us. And this is the perfect place for people who think they're the body. So, in order to get out of this situation, we need to remove this conditioning, we need to remove this contamination, and the process of devotional service does that. It's like Prabhupada explains in a purport in the Bhagavad Gita that chanting Hare Krishna removes the false bodily concept of life, destroys this false bodily concept of life. So by engaging in the process of Krishna consciousness, by hearing and chanting the pastimes of the Lord, this is the most powerful means for removing this contamination. And as we remove the contamination more and more, we lose attraction for these material things, and we develop our attraction for the all-attractive personality of Godhead. It's an easy process, and all we have to do is apply ourselves to it. We have to chant Hare Krishna, we take Krishna Prasad. Prabhupada would basically say, all you have to do is chant, dance, and feast. Yeah? It's such a simple process. And your life becomes sublime. And that's the way to become attracted to the all-attractive, is just to engage in the process of devotional service, and you will remove this external covering that is driving you to do everything you do, and you will start to become attracted to Krishna. And I'm sure all of you feel like, if you sit in Madhava's Kirtan tonight, you know, for, how long is it going for?
From 8 to 9:30.
Only. That's a shame. It'd be nice if it was going from now till 9:30. But his kirtan, you know, one of the things you'll notice with Madhava when he does kirtan, he's really serious about chanting Hare Krishna. So if you can sit with any degree of absorption in the holy name, just sit there and chant, not get distracted, and put your phone somewhere else or whatever, and just sit there and hear the holy name, chant the holy name. you will feel attraction for Krishna. You will feel attraction for the holy name. You will feel attraction for the process of bhakti. It's guaranteed. Because I was reading, when I was in Villa Vrindavan just last week, they asked me to give class from the 10th canto, 11th chapter, and I was talking about a personality called Kamsa, who was a bit of a rascal. And he had killed babies and persecuted brahmanas and stopped religious performances and all sorts of stuff, just because he thought he was God and he wanted to be the supreme enjoyer. But when he, because he was told he was going to be killed by Krishna, he was constantly absorbed in thoughts of Krishna all the time. When he was eating, when he was sleeping, when he was sitting, when he was standing, when he was walking, he couldn't stop thinking of Krishna. And this was so powerful that when he was killed by Krishna, all his offences were eradicated and he achieved Sarupya Mukti, or a form the same as the associates of God. This is the nature of this process of devotional service. If we absorb ourselves in it fully, then it will overcome any problem, any conditioning, any misconception we have, and it will help us to return to our original pure identity. So I encourage you all to stay through till 9:30. Try to sit in the kirtan, either on the floor in a chair, whatever works for you, and absorb yourself in chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the Yuga Dharma. It means it is the religious process for this age. And Lord Chaitanya says, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. There is no other means, there is no other means, there is no other means that works in this age. So if you're serious about understanding yourself, you're serious about understanding the religious process, please participate in this kirtan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any comments, questions at all? Yes?
I'm first time here, so it's okay to ask?
Yeah, please do.
After all the years practicing, do you know who you are?
Yeah, completely.
Okay.
I'm a servant of God.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
I'm a servant of God.
Okay.
And I'm completely peaceful with our identification. Because sometimes when at least for material people, in a material environment, the concept of being a servant is unpalatable. But when you're a servant of God, you're a servant of the greatest person. And I'm happy knowing that's who I am, because before I wasn't sure. I had so many concepts or misconceptions of who I might be. But now I know who I am. And that makes me feel comfortable, secure. Because we're all looking for that security in this material world. And knowing that I'm a servant of God, I travel around the world. And I just go from one place to another. Sometimes I've got no idea where I'm, I didn't know how I was going to get from Villa Vrindavan to here. I sent a message to Dal Govinda, and he said, yeah, I'll take you. I didn't know that was going to happen. So we just take shelter of Krishna, we place our faith in Krishna, he cares for us. And he says that, he says, do not fear, I will deliver you. He promises that. If we take shelter of Krishna, he'll take shelter of us, he'll take care of us completely. Because I remember years ago, I was a little boy, probably around 5, 6, 7, something, I don't remember exactly. But in Australia they have, I'm sure they do something similar here, but they have these things called agricultural fairs. And every town they have one at different times of the year. Then they have a major one in the capital city of every state. So in Australia there's 6 states, 2 territories. So in Melbourne, Sydney, all these places, they'll have this agricultural fair. So I went there with my parents. And, it was like me, a little boy looking around, it was like, this is like Disneyland with all this stuff going on, it was just incredible. And at some point, I got separated from my parents. And for a while I was thinking this was great because I could just do whatever I wanted to do. But then I started to realise things like food and you know, all these other things. I had no money, I didn't know my phone, where I lived or anything like that. And then so I started to cry. And cry and cry and cry. And somehow the police found me, and then they managed to locate my parents and stuff like that. But the point is, like, when I didn't have that sense of shelter from my parents, you know, because the child is really dependent upon the parents for everything, especially young children. They're very, and as you sort of get into your teenage years, you tend to sort of, you know, test your independence a bit. But as a child, I was really dependent upon my parents for shelter. And initially I was okay with that, but then after a while I started to feel insecure because I didn't have shelter. But then when my parents found me, again I felt secure. So the situation for us in this material world is we're bewildered. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we're supposed to do because we don't know who our shelter is. But if we come to the point of understanding that God is my only shelter, then we become happy, we become peaceful, we become secure. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Anything else? Yeah.
Just a little inspiration. You said that the animals have not the responsibility that we got as humans.
Ich spreche Sie Deutsch.
Yes. What?
He speaks German, I think. He speaks German.
He speaks in English, but
I'm speaking in English, right?
Oh, it sounds like German from here. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
it's okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. No. Okay, I was asking about the responsibility of animals that they do not have the same responsibility as humans, and they thought about the bees and ants that they do have some roles like that assigned.
They certainly have a function.
Yeah.
And every living entity has a function.
Okay.
You know, just like trees. You know, like, you know, I'm a little bit of I wouldn't say I was an environmentalist, but I do appreciate nature because I live out in nature. And one of the things you see in nature is every single organism has a specific function. And they, you know, due to their conditioned nature, they carry out that function. But they don't have responsibility. Meaning, they carry out their function, they don't get a reaction for that. I'll give you a simple example. Like, you know, say for instance you're talking with someone, right? And you start to disagree, and it becomes an argument, and then it becomes really heated, and you strike the other person, and they strike you back. Action, reaction, yeah? It's not like that in the plant and the animal world. They're just carrying out their functions and living out the results of their karma. So sometimes you see animals, they go through suffering because of their past karma, not because of what they're doing right now. There's no karma in lower forms. Only in the human form of life is there karma.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
It's okay to get another one.
Yeah, free of charge.
My dad has been a preacher in Christianity all his life and
Very nice.
praying to God and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So if I join you guys here and we praise Krishna, is that the same? Or do they, for me it's the same, it's just a different name.
Yeah, it's just like, you could, there's different ways of looking at it. There's many religions in the world, yeah? And they're all worshipping the same God. At least in my conviction, it's the same God. There is only one God. Because if you think one person's God, but the other one's not, you know, or there's more than one, there can only be one God. There's only one supreme being. Yeah? Different religions have different ways of approaching God. Some are more quick than others. So look at it this way. If you want to go to the top of I don't know if they have any big skyscrapers here, but you know, some of the cities, you go to New York and places like that, and some of the buildings like 200 stories high. Now, you can climb up the stairs, you can go up the regular elevator, or you can go up the express elevator. Which one do you choose to go?
Fastest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in this particular age we're living in now, there's 4 ages, just like with 4 seasons, there's 4 ages. We're in the age called Kali. And in this particular age, the fastest process is this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. This is the express plus elevator. There's nothing faster. It's the fastest means of God realization. Yeah? The other systems do work, there's no doubt of that. They do work if you stick to their system, but they do take longer. Yeah? And that's why it's said, because in different ages, like this is the most difficult age for spiritual realization that we're living in now. In the previous ages, they're much easier. Spiritual realization was much easier, and people they had much more qualities than we have now. In terms of pious qualities, good qualities, things like that, religious, etc. So there are other practices that were religious practices for those ages. But in this age we're living in right now, the best practice is chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That will get you there as quick as you can. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your nice questions. Okay, I think there's a feast now, right? Yeah. So this is another way that you can also remove the contamination from your heart, is by sumptuously eating Krishna Prasad. Yeah. So I'm sure there's plenty of prasad out there, so take as much as you like. And yeah, thank you for coming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nrsimha Kavaca Dasa. Thank you all for coming. So you're invited outside. At 6:15 the program will continue, and 7 o'clock with the Arati, and 8 Kirtan. 6:15.
What happened was all my chat history disappeared. All my WhatsApp chat history disappeared. So I didn't remember the dates I just said. So we did the European Vegetarian Sangha. I got invited to other places because I got over there.
The spirit of surrender,
Well, initially it's very difficult. So when you think about this, you've got to sort out your accommodation. It's just like we can't go there today before this is not accommodation. So maybe you check the space off. I think we've got I believe so. Just check the shop.
stille Meditation
Yeah, it's fine. Well, there's something to do. One of the things I've noticed in this club is because it's a flat page, it's sort of fingerprints. Maybe a hand or a touch code or something like that. Well, yeah, because they're flat page, so you've got gloss, semi-gloss or low sheet, and flat. And flat page marks are just the type of paper.
We don't have so much space.
This is like, that's the root of the make use of
My husband is not here.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
What's your name? Very well. Where are you from? My name's Nrsimha.
From Maloko.
Okay. And this is your first time here, huh? But this is your friend here, huh?
Yes.
You brought him in?
Yes, right.
Good job.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I do this.
But he does a lot of yoga, so he's not the beginner. It's
Okay.
the first time he did that.
Yeah, try to come to this one. Try to come to regular. Make sure you get some prasad or something to eat.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna eat, for sure, yes. Thank you very much. I had say in Australia, might, right?
Huh?
In Australia they say might.
Mate, really, mate.
Might, yeah, might. Ja, maar dat is een crazy fine. Ik ga niet bij ons te haaien, of?
Aber er versucht das.
Ja, maar te haaien.
Will eigentlich
Ja, ja, das ist total. Das ist
Und so passt die Arbeit.
Das ist so,
Dann.
alles ist so Sachen, Altarschmück, jetzt fällt es mit den Figuren raus. Das tust du, ein bisschen, ein bisschen,